Hey guys, what is up? RabidRetrospectGames bringing you a top 10 list. Today we're going to go over the top 10 worst games of 2015. 2015 did have a lot of good games, but it also had its fair share of duds. The footage you're seeing right now is the honorable 11th mention, but with that said, let's get right into it. Now, keep in mind, I am limited to what I have played, so if there's a game you think should be on this list, there's a really good chance that I actually haven't played it yet. I don't have time to play every single Unity game that releases on Steam. So with that said, let's get started with the list. Number 10, Devil's Third. I actually feel bad for Wii U exclusive owners. It's a pretty great system, but if you want mature games and your library is rather limited because the Wii U doesn't get your Witchers, Call of Duties, Assassin's Creeds, Fallouts, and whatnot, no, you get Devil's Third. And I actually went to buy a physical copy of this game, but apparently it's rarer than Panzer Dragoon Saga, so if you're wanting to try this game yourself, you're going to have to get it digitally like me. And unfortunately, that rarity doesn't equate to quality. Now, I had heard that this game was being ignored by Nintendo itself, which is kind of suspect because it's a Wii U exclusive, but after playing it, I can see why this game is being ignored. This game barely passes as a launch title for the Xbox 360, let alone the Wii U, which is supposed to be in the same market as the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's very bland in almost every aspect and regard from what I have personally played. Melee combat is decent at the absolute best, and shooting is beyond bland and uninteresting. Visually, it compares to a last-gen game. Story is just, yeah, but that's personal opinion there. I don't know. It only gets the number 10 spot because I already expected this game to be pretty bad as it was, and I can't stay too mad at something for telling me beforehand that it was going to be pretty bad. So the number 10 spot goes to Devil's Third. Number 9, Need for Speed 2015. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm some sort of racing connoisseur, but I will say I get the bug to play a racing game every now and then. And this year, I took the gamble with Need for Speed and found myself severely let down, even without any expectations. Now, perhaps more seasoned racing fans can enlighten me, but I had zero fun playing this game. The challenges you have to do seemingly consisted of drifting non-stop, in which you would frequently have to restart because your fellow racers would either be too far ahead or too far behind for your points to count, or they would just ram into you, forcing a restart anyway. The races themselves felt like the AI would just rubber band into the lead if you didn't have an absolutely perfect run. I still don't see the point of it being online exclusive. There was hardly any cops or fun things like that to outrun and outmaneuver. I actually only encountered cops 3 or 4 times during my whole playthrough of a Need for Speed game, and the story was just... Please don't make me talk about the story. I really don't mind small-scale stories. I don't. I love small-scale personal stories about people interacting with other people. That's great. I love those type of stories. But at least make it interesting if you're going to have it. I don't know. Maybe some of you all enjoyed this game. I could see this being one of the few controversial games to put on this list. But I just couldn't find any enjoyment out of this game. So for me, personally, the number 9 spot gets taken by Need for Speed 2015. Number 8, Rothschild, The Sheep Will Wake. This game was so laughable that I've barely put an hour in and feel fairly confident including it on a list of the worst games of 2015. I really don't need to list the faults of this game. It's clear why it's on the list. Just look at the footage. The footage makes it clear why it's on here. I will say that this game had me quit and give up in record time. I've played some bad games before, but this game just broke me in under an hour, and that's pretty impressive. The fact that Steam allows games like this to be released and charge actual money will never cease to amaze me. Early access or not, these types of games shouldn't be allowed to be sold to the general public, at least for any money. This game is just ugly, pure and simple. There's no redeeming qualities about it. There's nothing redeeming about this game. It shouldn't exist. It shouldn't have been released. Rothschild, The Sheep Will Wake earns the number 8 spot. Number 7, Overlord, Fellowship of Evil. The first of what will be a few entries on this list that take a well-known or somewhat known IP with some name recognition and make a new game that completely misses the point and spirit of the main games, and then has the audacity to not even be a good game. Now, I did try to give this game a chance because I actually enjoy the world of Overlord. It was a weird hacking slashy RPG with an almost RTS twist thrown in and felt like a grim fairy tale. What's not to like? And this game is a thing. It's not balanced if you're going to be playing solo, which you're going to have to do because the community for this game is non-existent. It's not that fun. The minions are just kind of there. It looks kind of bland, and it just misses the point of the originals. Now, that's not to say spin-offs are automatically bad, or games that change their styles. I've enjoyed games like DMC, Silent Hill Shattered Memories, and the Pokemon Mystery Dungeons to various degrees. A spin-off or change in gameplay style doesn't mean that a game has to automatically be bad. But that is not the case here. I could only stomach about 3 hours of this game before I called it quits. This game completely misses the point. It misses the spirit of the original series and doesn't even make a good game out of the IP it's wearing. Overlord Fellowship of Evil gets the number 7 spot on the worst games of 2015. Number 6, Paykan. I heard whispers about this game, notably from Jim Sterling, but even then it didn't prepare me for just how worthless this game is. I feel kind of at a loss for words. These, quote, horror games that keep turning up on Steam and other distribution platforms keep astonishing me in how horrible they are. It's almost like video games are finally emulating those direct-to-DVD horror films that you'd see in the discount bin at Best Buy or clogging up your Netflix recommendations. I don't know what I can say about this game. It's not scary, it's ugly, the music is terrible, it's confusing, it's a thing that exists and costs money, actual money that you would work to obtain. It costs that, and I just don't know. I mean, just look at it. I don't have the necessary vocabulary to describe how bad this game is. I believe at this point in time it's only 99 cents, and I almost want people to spend that to see how bad this game is. But I think that would make me a bad person. I don't know. I don't know. Had I spent more significant time with this game, then it might be higher on the list. But all these games here are pretty terrible as it is, so I really don't know what I can say about this game. It's just horrible. It's horrible. It's horrifyingly horrible. Maybe that was what they were going for. It's horrifyingly horrible. I don't know what to say about this particular game. I'm at a loss for words. Paykan gets the number 6 spot for worst game of 2015. Number 5, Project Knight. I almost left this game off the list because it's so easy to pick on these smaller games, especially the smaller Unity games or things like that. It really is, but I feel that if you're going to charge money for your game, then you should probably put some more effort into your games before charging money for them. Project Knight was a horrible horror game. Visually unappealing, confusing world design that looked like it was made from the scooped-up vomit of Silent Hill with a story that was just horrifically bad. Oddly enough, it was the only thing horrifying about this game. And enemies that look like they want to die on the inside. I mean, look at the footage. What more do you want from me? As probably one of the few people to play this game to completion, I really don't have any kind words about the game itself. And I actually do feel really bad about picking on this game, and I about left it off because it doesn't exist anymore. As of recording of this video, to even witness this monstrosity of a game, you're going to have to watch gameplay of other people because it has been removed from Steam and is no longer available from purchase. Still, when I played it back at the beginning of the year, it was one of the worst games I'd played in a very long time. And that still stands to this day. Project Knight, number 5 on the list of worst games of the year for 2015. Number 4, The Order 1886. This is one of those games that just rubs me the wrong way. And don't think that this game is going on here just because of its short length. I love short games. No, this game is going on the list for being completely lackluster in almost every significant regard, and for what it represents. This is one of those games that exists as a teaser for a potential game down the road, and it really doesn't care about the game it's releasing right now. Just the game we may get down the road. The Order 1886 right now is blatantly lacking any significant content to make it replayable to make up for its short length, has a story that exists solely to set up another story without itself containing any sort of meaningful narrative, and is just mediocre at best in almost every other aspect. That and it's just forgettable, which to me is worse than being just flat out bad. At least a bad game can be a talking point. This game is bad in the way that you forget that you wasted 5 hours of your life playing it. Nobody has really talked about this game since its release, and there's a reason why. I mean, can any of you remember anything of note from this game other than its length? Boss fights? Combats? Guess it's pretty. For me, it's just not worth talking about anymore. I'll probably go back to forgetting that this game even exists after making this list, but for now it earns the number 4 spot of worst games of 2015. Number 3, Alone in the Dark, Illumination. Talk about dredging up an IP for some quick cash. At this point, I think everyone is aware that Atari and its brands are just shells of what they once were, and aren't really worth any serious consideration nowadays. Still, a game trying to siphon off a gamer's nostalgia for a franchise that once was a benchmark in survival horror and turning it into a cooperative third-person shooter is still worth mentioning. Alone in the Dark has mostly been irrelevant since the PlayStation 1 era, excluding the reboot that happened in 2008 or 2009. But this is still just a shameful game without much to offer. It's a poor third-person shooter, trying to be Left 4 Dead, and completely misses the point of what Alone in the Dark once was. I only spent a few hours with this game, and I feel completely and totally ripped off. There's nothing here. Even ignoring the IP, it's not even a fun shooter, and feels like an early access title. And if you don't believe me, go buy the game, play it for 20 minutes, then go back and get your refund on Steam because you'll see that it's just broken and sad and a worthless game. Worthless game trying to leech off an IP that once had meaning. Everything you've heard about this game is true, and it's my number 3 for worst game of the year. Number 2, Raven's Cry. Believe it or not, this is a game I had my eye on for quite a while. Every now and then when I would check the upcoming releases on either Steam or Wikipedia, I always ran into this game, but there wasn't too much info on it other than it existed and its release kept getting pushed back. When it finally did arrive, it turned out to be exactly just what I was expecting. This is not a good game in any sense of the word. The story is rubbish, the gameplay is uninteresting at best and broke at worst, it's full of bugs, terrible voice acting, and it's just all around sloppy. You are much better off buying Assassin's Creed Black Flag, because this is just a poor attempt at a swashbuckling game if I've ever seen one. I disliked this game so much that I let out an audible sigh of relief when I found that I actually saved footage of this game from earlier this year and didn't have to re-download and play it again. Now, I have heard since the time of the release of the original game that they did release an updated version called Vendetta Curse of the Raven's Cry, I do believe. You can't even find the original version on Steam anymore, and I do hope this new version is better for those that are interested in trying this game out, but I wouldn't hold my breath, and I personally don't feel like spending any more time with this series than I already have. Raven's Cry earns the runner-up for worst game of 2015. This game right here, to me, is not just awful because of the quality of the game itself, but what it represents. The dishonor of worst game of the year of 2015 in my list goes to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. Similar to Alone in the Dark, Illumination, and Overlord Fellowship of Evil, except on a grander scale, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 represents some of the worst aspects of video games. The type of slapped-together game made to cash in on nostalgia with such a lack of respect towards the legacy of the franchise that it supposedly continues, that it's easy to see how gamers can become completely jaded to the medium. Spending any significant time with this game makes it abhorrently apparent that zero meaningful work went into this game, with its bare-bones content, lackluster visuals, bugs, and just being plain boring. It really is a shame that games like this exist because they do nothing but breed contempt for a really enjoyable medium of entertainment. I really feel bad for diehard Tony Hawk fans because I know this isn't the game they wanted the Pro Skater series to go out on. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 earns my dishonorable award of Worst Game of 2015. Alright, so 2015 is just about over with, and I, just like everyone else, have a top 10 list. This is going to be mine for the top 10 best games of 2015. Now, keep in mind, these are all my personal choices based on my own personal tastes. If you think there's a game that should be on here that isn't, chances are I either didn't play it or it just wasn't for me. To also address the screen thing that you're seeing right now, the bars at the top will give the name of the game in addition to its place, the box on the top right also denotes the place, and the box on the bottom left denotes which consoles I played said games on, not what consoles they appear on. With that said, I hope you all enjoy. 2015 had some pretty solid games, so here it goes. Rounding off this list in the number 10 spot is Layers of Fear. Now, I actually debated putting this game on the list simply because, as of writing, the game is still in early access. If you're someone who doesn't care for early access recommendations, then consider getting Soma. However, I do feel that this game overall is good enough, even in this current unfinished state, to be called one of the better games of 2015. It's atmospheric, psychological, doesn't rely on some sort of unkillable monster with no way to fight back. The music is moody and appropriately raises the tension at just the right time. Layers of Fear is a standout horror game in a sea of copycats and imitators. If you want a quality horror experience, I highly recommend it. Although be warned, it is a rather short game. Still, it's worth at least a browse. Entering in at number 9, Fallout 4. Now, there are aspects of Fallout 4 that I genuinely disliked. The main storyline felt a little weak, animations are still horrible, and the new voice-acted protagonists have severely limited the dialogue choices and story outcomes. That last one in particular is a major mark towards the game in my opinion. Regardless, I spent roughly 16 or so hours just base building, and probably around 30 to 40 hours of just exploring the Commonwealth. And I even enjoy some of the streamlining in regards to features like the leveling up system. For better or for worse, no one really makes games like Bethesda that are just so easy to lose yourself in, flaws and all. Despite all the negative points that you can list and levy towards Fallout 4, there's almost a weird balance. If you don't like one way of playing, there's usually another way that you will. Fallout may have lost its way in being a great RPG, but it's still one of the most enjoyable sandboxes out there. Now, chances are you already own this game. It's sold like 12 million copies. But if you don't, there are worse ways of spending time than going out and exploring the Commonwealth. If you haven't already, check it out. And I recommend the PC platform if you're able to, but the console versions are pretty good too. Our next entrant may be the most surprisingly fun game of the year. Coming in at number 8, Splatoon. I can't really sing the praises of this game enough. It's visually charming, it's a really unique and original premise, the weapons are fun and varied, there's plenty of customization, you can choose several different ways to approach a match online, and yet they somehow all manage to be fairly balanced. I am actually kind of at a loss of words on how to really articulate how much I enjoy this game. I actually have been postponing the writing of this video that you're listening to right now to play Splatoon, so yeah. To say that Nintendo has perhaps the best multiplayer game of the year with a straight face is something that I'm not really used to. In a year with Halo, Call of Duty, a new Souls-type game, Vermintide, Star Wars Battlefront, and a slew of multiplayer games, this is just odd, and great, and kind of odd. Nintendo have always had some of the most colorful and inventively fun games on their consoles, and this is no exception. And if you own a Wii U, then treat yourself and buy this game. You will not regret it for 1 minute. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I cannot really even find the correct way to phrase how much I love this game. It's by far the best multiplayer experience of the year, hands down. If you have a Wii U, go out and buy this game. If you don't have a Wii U, then you maybe should think about getting a Wii U just for this game. That's how much I like it, and I stick by that. So, Splatoon? Please give me more. Coming in at number 7 is a little title called Discourse. I'm actually surprised no one has really talked about this game. It's actually one of the better indie games released this year. Basically, this is a choice-based game where literally almost everything you do changes the outcome of the story. The premise is you're stranded on an island with several other passengers after a plane crash, and you need to figure out how to survive and escape with as many people as you can. What follows is a game with several twists and turns, beautiful art style, some great music, and really interesting characters. I will say it is a really short game, clocking in around an hour and a half, but there's just so much replayability, which makes me believe anyone will get their money's worth out of it. Personally, I went through the game 3 times in a row just to see how things would play out if I slightly altered my choices. Thankfully, there really is a good amount of variety in how the choices can alter and affect the course of the story and the game. If you want a choice-based game where your choices actually matter on a fairly large scale, then this is the game you've been looking for. It's a little short, but it's well worth your time. Just missing the top 5 is Batman Arkham Knight. As far as trilogy cappers go, this is a very solid way for Rocksteady to end this era of Batman games. Overall, Arkham Knight is a very impressive final outing. The gameplay was still as satisfying as in previous installments, with a few added features here and there. The Batmobile was fun to use, if admittedly a bit too shoehorned in at times. Visually, it was one of the better games of the year with a absolutely strong art direction, and it had perhaps the best voice acting cast of the year with excellent performances by Kevin Conroy, Grey DeLisle, Nolan North, Mark Hamill, Ashley Greene, Tara Strong, Troy Baker, John Noble. It really was a standout voice acting cast, and I hope that tradition continues with whatever the next big DC game is as far as that's concerned. And as for the main story, I found it very enjoyable. Maybe it wasn't as good as Arkham City, that's up for debate, but I felt that Arkham Knight himself was an excellent addition to the Arkham universe, and to see how his story unravels along with the Scarecrow's plan was just a joy to see. It really was. It was a really strong outing as far as trilogies go. Excellent game, providing you're not playing on the PC platform. That version does not go on this list. Only buy this if you're a console gamer. Sorry, PC. Cracking the top 5 is the massive RPG, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. While not as high on my list as it is in others, The Witcher 3 is still an excellent game that provides an enormous amount of quality content for anyone that is a fan of dark fantasy RPGs and is easily a classic for the genre. While not being hugely versed in the Witcher series lore and world myself, I was still enthralled by this particular game just because of the overall polish and quality. Geralt's quest to find Ciri and confront the Wild Hunt is wrought with high-quality voice acting, excellent world-building, with a variety of captivating quests, both big and small, top-notch visuals that are virtually unrivaled by any other major release of 2015, a beautiful and memorable score, engaging gameplay that requires some real thought on the higher difficulties, and plenty of unique and interesting monsters to slay. There really isn't too much I can add to what has already been said about The Witcher 3. There is a reason it appears on so many lists for excellent games from 2015. It has earned every accolade that's been given to it. If you're not convinced yet, then that truly is a loss on your part. Everyone should go out and try The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Excellent game, one of the best of the year. The number 4 spot goes to the PlayStation 4 exclusive, Until Dawn. This game does what so many others try and fail to do, and that's be cinematic. Taking the role of these doomed young adults as they revisit a cabin on the anniversary of their friend's disappearance goes places that will shock and awe most gamers, I think. And what I love is that every aspect of this game, from the trope-filled characters, the music, the visual style, they all help Until Dawn feel like an interactive slasher movie, and I mean that in the best of ways. It makes you feel like you are taking the role of the all-knowing director that decides who lives and who dies by the end of the story. There's really not too many games out there like Until Dawn, aside from Heavy Rain, which is another PlayStation exclusive on the PlayStation 3, but I hope we start seeing more like it. To feel like the director of a movie while all these horrifying twists and turns happen is a really unique experience. Personally, I found myself glued to my television for the entire duration of the game, and practically played it all in one setting. Now, while it might not be to everyone's taste due to the rather simplistic gameplay elements, the choices that each character has to make, and the way the story unravels itself, the way it drops bombshell after bombshell as the story unravels, is so enthralling and so addicting to see play out. I really think anyone, especially horror fans, are going to be glued to their television as they're playing Until Dawn. Until Dawn is a really welcomed exclusive for the PlayStation 4 library, and if you haven't, please check it out. It's an excellent game. Can't recommend it enough. Now we're getting into the final big three, and for the number 3 spot, I have chosen Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain. I am exceedingly saddened by the fact that I only became a Metal Gear Solid fan since last year. That's when I decided to go back and try out some series that I'd never gotten into before, and for whatever reason, the stars just aligned in just the right way, and I finally understood why people love Metal Gear Solid. And when I understood why people love Metal Gear Solid, I actually sat down and I played through Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, and 4 all in the course of just 2 weeks, and even played through 3 twice. I mention all this to give context because of how certain events have transpired in regards to the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and unfortunately it seems that I have jumped onto the bandwagon at the very end of this franchise's lifespan, at least in regards to who's at the helm. And as saddened as I am by that, Phantom Pain is one hell of a swan song, if I do say so myself, and there are just so many things to love and appreciate about this game. The gameplay is crisp, fun, and I could, and have, spent an embarrassing amount of time just faulting people. The open world aspect was done exceedingly well, and can be one massive time sink if you let it. Recruiting for your base, resource gathering, replaying the missions to get an S rank, getting 100% of the objectives, upgrades, side ops. There's just a lot of content packed into this game. Visually, the game looks fantastic. The Fox engine really is a marvel, and I hope to see it again in some capacity, but we'll have to see. And even the soundtrack was done very well, just like every other Metal Gear Solid game. This is just an exceptional game and an exceptional overall package. The only thing that holds it back from being my personal, unanimous number 1 is, unfortunately, the story. And I understand why the story is the way it is. I really do. I have followed the drama, the rumors, just like everyone else. However, the game is still missing that story element. And because of the fact that it is missing those additional story elements, and some other general nitpicks, like with the lack of interesting boss fights, the filler, and just stuff like that, it really does hold this game back, but not by much. That just tells you how good this game is. That just shows you how much quality was put into this game, how much time and effort and love went into this game. It's so good, and just a few nitpicks and things that really weren't the game creator's fault have held the game back, unfortunately. And despite all that, it's still an excellent game. And if you haven't, you really should try Metal Gear Solid 5. It's a great game. It's worth anyone's time and anyone's money. It's just such a well-done game, even despite its shortcomings, even despite the cut content. It's still one of the best games of the year. Cannot recommend Metal Gear Solid 5 enough. If you haven't tried the Metal Gear Solid franchise before, please, for whatever reason, you haven't tried it, just go out there and try this game out. Go rent it at Redbox, go buy it. It's a great game. You won't regret your purchase. It came really close between this game and my number 1 pick, but I have to go with Bloodborne as runner-up for my top 10 games of 2015. That's only because of personal preference and not any fault of the game itself. Despite that, Bloodborne is an excellent spiritual successor to both Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and I would argue that is either the best or the second best entry into these acclaimed games. Now, part of the reason I love this game so much is the gameplay. I've always been a defensive player in the Souls games, with the exception of Demon Souls, but Bloodborne is the first time I've truly felt 100% comfortable with the combat, forcing players to ditch the shield, reinventing the weapons with the trick weapon system, and completely redoing the magic were very bold moves that I think paid off very well. I never really felt like there was any challenge that I couldn't eventually overcome, even if it was difficult. Part of that is because of the faster pace, the dodge mechanics, the staggering with the gun, the risk-reward system for going in and trying to regain health after taking a hit. All of these elements make a really, in my opinion, balanced game that is still challenging, but encourages you to get better. When a particularly difficult enemy or boss beat me, I felt more encouraged to win than I have with any of the other Souls games or Souls-like games. Personally, Bloodborne has my favorite gameplay of all of the From Software Souls and Souls-like games, and it's just really fun to play. And all that praise isn't even mentioning the Lovecraftian world that was created for Bloodborne. I love the more horror and otherworldly feel of the world, lore, and story. It's not something I see too often that is done very well. But From Software did an excellent job of building this game's universe and making it distinct and unique from Dark and Demon Souls. The game also looks pretty fantastic, if I do say so myself. I personally love the art direction. It goes great with the universe they've set up. And if you own a PS4, if you have a PS4 and you don't own Bloodborne, then you're really doing it wrong. This is an excellent game, and I think you would have to be crazy not to at least give it a shot. Once you get the hang of it and you beat your first boss, you'll be hooked. Any owner of a PlayStation 4 needs to go out and at least try Bloodborne. Rent it, buy it, whatever, but you need to play it. Excellent game, my runner-up for top 10 games 2015. And the number one game of 2015, in my opinion, which I don't expect anyone to agree with, is Life is Strange. I don't see too many people agreeing with me in picking this game over the likes of Metal Gear Solid 5, Bloodborne, The Witcher 3, and I get why that would be. I do. However, I personally didn't enjoy anything else as much as I did Life is Strange. This game was made specifically for me, I felt like. It has all of my guilty pleasures of being episodic, has some sort of weird, unexplained supernatural force, includes a slice of life storyline, indie-sounding music with people that wail over acoustic guitars way too much. It just hit all of the right buttons for me. Max, Chloe, and company really helped make this game's world come alive in a way that most other games don't, for me at least. And I want to say that I thought this game would wind up being my favorite game of the year around the time that Episode 2 happened. Episode 1 was a very great setup. It introduced us to all the characters of the world, left an interesting whodunit murder mystery for us to solve and theorize about, and gave the unique twist of time manipulation via rewind, which meant that we could keep redoing certain events to see how it might play out differently and get different perspectives. That's all great, but Episode 2 really sealed the deal for me at the end, and if you've already played the episode, then you can probably guess what made this game stick with me. It actually made me regret initially writing this game off when I saw it on the upcoming Steam game section before launch. Was really proved wrong in a big way by this game, and there's a lot of praise you can say about Life is Strange. I felt that like, every episode had just enough character growth, just enough world building, just enough story progression that I was always left satisfied by the end, but I wanted to keep going. I wanted to see what happened next, but I was satisfied with what I got. I never felt like I was hung out to dry with any of the episodes, but I always kept wanting more. The characters, while a bit cheesy at times admittedly, were all unique and interesting, and I wanted to know what happened to them. I wanted to see how the story progressed. I wanted to see how everything would end, and I was left satisfied when all was said and done. Are there nitpicks and flaws? Yeah. While the visuals support a great art style, do look a bit dated in some areas, and the lip syncing is probably the worst of all games on this list, but none of that stuff really bothered me too much. Same with a lot of games on this list. The positives, while not completely erasing the negatives, are enough to where they don't sting as bad. You don't notice them as much. But yeah, Life is Strange is my overall favorite game of the year. I don't know what everyone else's will be. I imagine The Witcher 3, MGS5, Bloodborne, Until Dawn, and others will take several awards, but for me, nothing tops Life is Strange. So I thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you when I see you. Take care.